everybody. And now we're here. I had the wrong setup at first. And let me get our Facebook page open so we can start chatting away with you. And let's see here. Turn this down. All right. So we had our first live stream mass from the church. Father Holmes and Deacon Guillermo did the Palm Sunday mass. It was beautiful, and we had our team of people working on it. It was very exciting. It was neat to see. Felt like we're a mega church. Father, did you feel any pressure?
A little bit. I mean, I guess I was sweating towards the end, but I always sweat. That was a kind of a heavy vestment. At least we didn't have to say too much in the homily, so that was good. No, not too bad. A little bit of chanting. The chanting doesn't really bother me that much. I like it. The music was glorious. Although some of the music I find so moving it. I have to be careful. I'll almost break down and start crying.
We had music that Father loved very much at the Mass tonight. And someone told me we should have a happy hour. This is LaCroix sparkling water. Figured for Holy Week, drinking LaCroix was a good thing.
Speaking of music, since we're live, I'll make this one recommendation. For communion, we had a hymn, which is, it's an old African-American spiritual. It's beautiful. It's called Were You There? Of course, we sing it here periodically. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? So if you go online, go to YouTube, and pull up Were You There? And the artist's name is Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson. Listen to Paul Robeson. He's a baritone. Fabulous, fabulous voice. Listen to Paul Robeson's version. Most powerful version I've probably ever heard of that song.
Now, Father has been schooling me in opera music.
No.
Who was it that you love? Maria Callas. He loves Maria Callas.
Pavarotti.
Pavarotti. And who's the other one? That New Jerusalem song?
Several
African American singer.
Yeah, she just died.
Yeah,
she was. Give me a while. I'll think of her name. She just passed away. She sang at the Met. Very famous opera singer also. But her name escapes me right now. I'll remember it later.
We'll remember it when we're done. But
probably.
Mary Thompson says that Mass was awesome. That was in all caps, so that's a big vote for you,
Nice.
Father.
Well,
And Kate Breen, hi Father Holmes, long time no see. Hi Father Lundberg, you're awesome with your technology.
Yes, he is. Without Father Lundberg, let me tell you, and this is no exaggeration. Without Father Lundberg, none of this would have happened. If technology was dependent on me, I'd have called somebody.
Well, there's a modified version of that. We got amazing staff here, and they have been cracking the web. And we had a donor who donated the camera that we used for Mass tonight in the church that we could be using for the future. And people have been working around the clock, so it's exciting to watch. I felt like a mega church pastor tonight. All right, so Suzette says hi. Carolyn Spinelli, greetings,
nice.
Fathers. Claude Marquette, hi, Fathers. Have a wonderful evening. Kate Breen says, Father Holmes, how do you remember all this stuff? You are a font of information.
Kate would remember this because when I was in seminary, I had a
Jesse Norman.
That's it. Very good. Yes,
Heather Gardner sent that. Jesse Norman.
She's right. Yeah, that's the best version of the Holy City of Jerusalem. But anyway, so I had this classmate in seminary who was a great guy. Sadly, he's since passed. But I remember he said to me one day, he said, Stephen, I've discovered your gift. And I said, well, what is it, Quentin? He says, it's worthless, obscure knowledge. And I said, you're right. But I said, look at it this way, Quentin. Some knowledge is worthless, but not obscure. Some knowledge is obscure, but not worthless. I have the best of both worlds, and you're jealous. So it's, you fill your head with enough trivia after a while. Some of it you remember, names and dates, it helps. And when I was a kid growing up, my mother used to read Luella Parsons and Hedda Hopper. It always mentioned somebody's name or date, and so I was good at history.
I don't know, he might have just not watching right now, but Kevin Boley was watching, and Kevin directs youth ministry for the diocese.
Yes.
And we're working with him. They've organized in Rome the basilicas. It's tradition on a pilgrimage that you visit the 7 basilicas in Rome. And this developed into you do, and there's the 7 church walk, which is traditional, like on Holy Thursday, that you go to the altars of repose in 7 churches. And when we were living in Northern Virginia, it was a little bit easier to go visit all these altars of repose. But what Kevin and the diocese is organizing with the youth ministry office is going to be a virtual streaming 7 church visit,
Oh, neat.
which will be online. So it'll be a Zoom feed from 7 churches, one from each
That is so
deanery,
cool.
and then that'll be on Facebook, so you can watch that.
It's amazing what you can do with the technology.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
crazy. And Father's having Skype meetings now, so if you want to organize a Skype meeting with Father Holmes, he's ready to go.
Zoom.
And Zoom, sorry. Okay, yes, Angela Matsky said opera singer Jesse Norman. Yes, you're
Yes.
correct.
Yeah, it's quite stunning.
Carolyn Spinelli says Ted is with me and says
Nice.
hi as well. I hope your children are behaving. I don't know if they're still crazy.
Ted has a beautiful voice too. Very nice.
We'll get Ted to sing online. Mark Gardner says worthless obscure knowledge is also Heather Gardner's gift.
It's nice to have a kid.
So
Soul.
let's see what's coming up this week. We have tomorrow. We've got Palm Sunday Mass for 9 a.m., 11 a.m. 9 a.m. is English, 11 a.m. is Latin, extraordinary form. 1 o'clock is Spanish. The diocese asked that we not distribute palms this year, tomorrow, so that's not happening tomorrow. We are still doing. The church will be closed until about 2:30 because of the masses, because we're trying to stream all the masses from the church. And then the church will be open from 2:30 to 9 for exposition. And then again, back all nights out of the chapel window. And then this week, we've got Mass of the Lord's Supper. We're going to put out some updated information. We have Mass of the Lord's Supper Thursday evening, followed by, we can have an altar of repose. And so what we're going to do is, we're finalizing details, but we're going to have the Mass in the church, and then a procession outside, down in Muldowney Hall. We'll have the altar of repose, and then we're going to set up a system, and it'll be 10 people at a time for 10 minutes. So we'll have drive-in, visit the altar of repose, where we're just going to have people pull up. It'll probably be a bit crazy, but we'll take 10 at a time, put them in Muldowney Hall, they can visit the Blessed Sacrament, then they leave, and then the next 10 come. We figured over 4 hours we can get 240 people in, but it would involve some patience. So that'll be Holy Thursday. Good Friday, we have the Lord's Passion in English at 3, and then it's Spanish, I believe it's 7. And then we're also doing a similar drive-through visit for the venerate the cross. We're venerating, but we can't touch it. So the crucifix with candles will be on the altar, and we're going to try to come up with a system. People come in for a period of time and then leave, 10 at a time, come in, back and forth. And we're figuring out what we're going to also do some creative live streaming earlier in the day on Good Friday. So we're going to try to live stream a rosary,
Nice.
Chaplet of Mercy, Stations of the Cross, and the midday prayer. And with the rosary, chaplet, and stations, we're trying to figure out a way to do a Zoom conference where families from the parish could do one of the stations or one of the mysteries. So that updated information will be coming out, and then Father Holmes and I still have to discuss what other confession times we'll have for Holy Week. So
Remember too, the Holy Father in particular has asked us, I think this year, very prudently and wisely, I would say, certainly, that we should really focus on Jesus on the cross. Earlier today I was thinking about, I think it was Saint Bruno. Father will correct me, he's the font of all knowledge. I'm just the font of obscure knowledge, but I think it was
Which
Bruno.
is the font of a lot of opinion.
Yeah, that's about it mostly, yeah. Who was the founder of the Carthusians, who said, the cross stands firm
Yes.
while the world turns.
Yes.
And a couple of years ago, there was a priest, Father Robert Sirico, I believe he's with the Acton Institute, I don't know if he's still there, but anyway, he was on Laura Ingram's show, who by the way is a convert, very, very fervent Catholic, Laura Ingram. And, you know, they both had a good point, especially in our world today with, you know, a lot going on with the coronavirus, COVID-19, that is, most of it is beyond our control. There's a lot of fear and anxiety, and perhaps some of it justified. We don't know exactly when it's going to end, etc. But this is the week, if there is any week of the entire, this is our most solemn week of the year liturgically. We really have to slow down, focus on the cross, focus on Christ, as the Holy Father is asking us to do. You know, the cross stands firm. The world is going to change. It'll always change. fads come and go, but Christ is yesterday, today, and forever. So really, if you can, while you're at home, pray the rosary, look at the cross, meditate on the Passion, read the long Passion narrative a little bit each day, or the Gibson movie, although very violent, but it is violent, but stylistically, that's the best biblical movie I think ever made, beyond far. So you have opportunities. Take time to be with your family and loved ones and pray this week.
Patricia, I don't know how to say her last name correctly, but Patricia Carney Loque, she says, glad to see you both. Kevin Boley did see us. He says, hey, two of the Boley's favorite priests on one live feed. Thanks for helping with the pilgrimage on Thursday. Kevin, you've inspired me a lot with that, so I'm going to have somebody in our parish call you because we need to know how to do what you're doing.
Kevin's very kind. I don't know what's bigger, our bodies or our egos. We can barely fit on the camera.
All right. Joan Cassell is here again from North Carolina.
Wonderful, welcome.
She just participated in Mass with Father Jim Olson, right, at Mother Divine Grace in Philly. So that is one of our seminary professors, and
nice.
Joan worked at the seminary and she put up with us.
Oh,
so she got out of purgatory.
Blessings to her.
Allison says, those are some posh chairs I never noticed before. Yes, Allison, I can tell you these chairs are like 30 years old and they're sort of falling apart, so I have no problem appearing on
They just look posh. They're relatively comfortable though.
Laura Ricketts says,
nice.
My pastor growing up said the Easter Vigil Mass was his least favorite Mass of the year. He wasn't a big fan of music. With this week being the Olympics for priests, true. What are your least favorite and most favorite aspects of Holy Week as priests? Any thoughts?
It always seems to me, now you're the pastor, so you're probably 100 times busier than I am, but it always seems to me that just you're trying to rush to get everything done at the last minute. And in particular, I really haven't practiced the Exultet much. I'm going to have to listen to it online this week and really try to get up to speed, because I just I've just got to get through the Exultet, then the rest of things, everything else can fall apart as long as the Exultet goes fine.
No pressure. You'll just be singing the Exultet on the internet.
Yeah, and everybody's going to hear it. I think just beyond that, just all the preparation, there's so much. You just have to appreciate all the work that everybody does to try and pull it off and make it beautiful, from the celebrant to the server to the choir and Mark Pickowitz, and just, like I said, everyone here is just, the staff here is just phenomenal. And the Father also, I would say, besides being very talented with the technology, really he has an eye for talent, of seeing people who work well together, and he's put together a terrific staff they're not only wonderful people who you want to be around and get to know, they work well and they're very competent, and that's a huge plus. It takes a lot of load off our backs, I think.
Totally, and of course too, we inherited this amazing parish from Monsignor Krempa, and majority of the staff was here, and then we brought in a few additions, and they've been either part of the parish family or a welcome addition to the parish family, so it's been good. And Mary Thompson says, Father, you have a great voice, and Chris Ricketts says, I'll second that.
Oh, they're kind. It's untrained, but it's fair. It's loud.
Some of the stress is lots of confessions, try to figure out confessions, and then you're running around trying to figure out the ceremonies and who's doing what, and Palm Sunday, and then you get to that and you have a little bit of a lull, and normally around this time we'd be having penance services, so we're doing the drive-in confessions instead. Yeah. So it's weird because we had Palm Sunday, but we had 10 people in the church, so it was strange, but it was really neat to be able to stream it for everybody and to see the church again. We're trying to figure out maybe we can do daily Mass from the church eventually. So, so Lori Ann says, hi from Florida. Oh, how
nice.
I can't say her last name correctly. Lori Ann Lascelles, whatever. They miss us. Kelly Kaiser says, parish staff rock, which is true because Kelly kept St. Mary's together when we were there.
Yes, she did.
So what else? So it's the confessions, it's the ceremonies, it's all this cool stuff. It's moving. It's just neat when you have a great team and everything's in place. You kind of go, okay, this can kind of work. The first 2 years you're kind of learning. Third year I was really looking forward to this kind of smooth sailing, but we have the quarantine, so we're not bored.
I think too, as a priest, I don't want to speak for Father, but I think you would agree with this, that once it's over, you're probably exhausted, you just want to crash.
The Lord is risen and we're dead.
There's a certain theology of labor, if you will. Not that we want to over dramatize it or read too much in it, but I think a priest should be spent. a little bit more, and maybe more than a little bit, because this is also a very crucial part of the year for us. We renew our promises as priest to the bishop. Normally we celebrate the high liturgies, the passion narrative of the Lord, his death and resurrection. So you kind of pull out all the stops. So at the end of it, we probably are exhausted, but I think it's an exhaustion well spent. If I can put
No,
it
it's a
that way.
good feeling. I mean, it's like Christmas and Easter. When it's all done, you kind of fall in the chair
You're glad
and
it's
collapse
all-
in these chairs. And then you're like, okay, let's take a quick nap in the chairs and then go over see my parents. And we have a fun time there. Let's see here. What else? Well, we'll move on here. Celeste Youngblood says, hi. Let's see. I think there's nothing more profound than the beginning of the Good Friday liturgy when the priests prostrate themselves before the cross. For me, that's when it really hits. Yeah.
They said too, we mentioned this a couple of days ago about Bishop Sheen, that when Sheen was probably at his best in probably sometime in the early 1950s when he was made a bishop, he was so popular and so magnetic as a preacher that they would set out like boom boxes outside of St. Patrick's.
Yes, for the
And
seven last words.
For the 7 last words, the Tre Ore, and I don't know how many St. Patrick's can hold, at least 2,000, probably more, I'm sure 3,000 to 4,000. They said Sheen would be preaching on Good Friday from 4,000 to 8,000 people, maybe more. I mean, it's amazing what that man did. What could he do today if he, with the communications today? And what we are doing, it's amazing.
Interesting question here. Kate Breen says, do confessions depress you? I would say, it seems to me that there's two broad distinctions here. One is that I'd say 70 to 80% of priests are introverts. So I think confessions drain their energy. And a smaller percentage of us are crazy extroverts. And so I get energy from people. Now, there are times when confessions are a pain. But as a general rule, I love to talk. So, but for most priests, I think they put so much energy into hearing confessions that it's very draining. And then the grace of the sacrament, I don't care what Father has to say. No, it doesn't depress you. I mean, if I had to make it kind of a bad analogy, a doctor, when they first become a doctor, they're like, or like if you're first becoming a teacher, you're like, oh, how do I do all this, all these moving parts? But when they get good at what they're doing, their bedside manner, they know that the people coming into them are sick. So they want to help them get better. Now, if the person comes in and just says, well, I don't feel well. Well, okay, you got like COVID, or you got a stubbed toe, like what do you have? So you got to ask all these questions. And so I think it's normal. Nobody naturally likes to go into a room and tell someone they don't know their sins, okay, right? We don't like that. But you know that people are burdened down, and you know that people want to be forgiven and get rid of this, and you know more importantly, God wants to take away their sin and their misery from them, but they're afraid. They're afraid of the process, they're afraid of being judged, they're afraid of all kinds of things. So over time, you get better at trying to help them realize that this is really a gift from God, and you have to be careful, right? Your confession it's not meant to be a root canal, and you have to work with the person, the penitent, where they're at. But, I mean, I think what's kind of neat, like Father said at the end of Easter, when you plop down your seat, worn out, you feel good. And when someone leaves the confessional unburdened from their sins, I feel good, I feel good that I've helped them. But yes, there are times when you just want to, go nuts. But most of the time, I don't mind it. But I think that's maybe partly because I'm an extrovert.
I think one of the things I find with confessions, and I tend to agree, I can get wore out after a while. The gravity of sin doesn't generally bother me. What does occasionally bother me is when you have someone that comes in, and it's been a while, and it's either they really haven't examined their conscience, or worse, they're really not even aware of sin. That I find troubling. Now, God always meets us where we're at. God is always willing to forgive. A beautiful meditation on that is maybe even the disciples on the road to Emmaus, because they were fleeing right after Jesus, they had heard reports of his resurrection, but they thought, well, they were running probably for fear, this little town outside of Jerusalem, and of course they encounter Lord Jesus, but they don't recognize him. Finally, they recognize him in the breaking of the bread. And somebody was talking to someone about this week, and I said, I'm going to meditate on that because it's a good way of using the scriptures as an ongoing way to look at conversion, and especially with penance and confession. So it's never the gravity. Oh, Father, Father Jim Gould, our former vocations director, had a great story. He had a priest, he had a priest in Iowa. This priest, I don't remember his name, but he said when he was a kid, he used to go to this priest. He said, "Bless you, Father." He said, "Father, I stole $1 million. It's okay. Glory to God, you're here. It's okay. Glory to God, we'll take care of it. Father, I murdered 100 people. Oh, it's okay. Glory to God, you're here. It's glory to God, we'll take it." It's like, "Father, I slandered Father Holmes and Father Lundberg. It's okay. Glory to God. They probably deserved it. Glory to God." So there was no. It's not the gravity of sin that troubles me. It's because what I try to do is when someone I think has really done a good job, I will say to them, "I'm proud of you," and I will tell them, "You have made a good confession." And if they haven't made a good confession, they still get absolution, and you always, and I think Father, I'm sure he does this in his other, you always want to encourage penitence. You never want them to leave.
Right.
If they leave and they feel worse off than before they came in, something's wrong.
Right.
That should never be the experience. Granted, we all get tired, we all occur occasionally, but it should never be like that. Now, it may well be that they didn't examine their conscience well, and you say, well, maybe you need to come more often and get a book on how to go to confession, or maybe read the catechism, etc. So you always want to try to point them, and you always encourage them, and give them a penance that generally can be completed quickly, and it's medicinal, as John Paul said in Reconciliatio et Penitentia, in his encyclical on penance, that the penance should apply as like a medicine as a medicine for whatever the sin was, or sins, I guess.
Let's see here. Mary Wright says to one of our parishioners, "Hey, fathers, you guys rock with all this technology, and thank you for enjoying
Father Lundberg rocks with the technology.
No, we're doing. Hey, Father
not
Holmes,
so much.
Father Holmes is totally getting into this. I don't think he even knew what Skype was about 2 weeks ago.
I had an idea.
Okay, Carolyn again, Spinelli. Easter Vigil will be strange to see without anyone receiving sacraments of initiation. Do you think you'll miss that aspect of it? Yeah, I think the whole thing is going to be off or strange. But, we're looking forward to the Easter season, or with Pentecost, God willing, maybe these restrictions will be lifted sooner. Let's see, Dolores says, "Prayers for both of you and our parish family." Shannon Clausen, "I love the Divine Mercy Chaplet, but I've seen some crazy posts on Catholic sites saying it's not recognized nor should it be prayed. Your thoughts? Stay well." Well, I think part of that could be that at one point early on, there were some poor translations of St. Faustina's diary that were in circulation, and for a while it was on the Index of Forbidden Books. This was lifted. And there, to give, I'm not going to make a real fair stab at this, there are people who think, or whose experience of the church in the last 50 years is everything's unraveled, we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater, you can't find the tabernacle, you can't find adoration, confessions are never available, Our Lady is downplayed, and all we hear about is this like sort of lovey-dovey, fuzzy kind of faith, and then I think they might see the Divine Mercy as part of that. Whereas I think when you read the Divine Mercy diary and the devotion and John Paul's promotion of it, it's all integrated in tradition. So I think one can still love the traditional devotions of the Sacred Heart and other traditional things to the Passion, and still see, because when you read the diary and you see again, I really love Divine Mercy devotion, so I think if you've read someone who said not to read it or do it, they might be because they think it's too squishy, or they think it's somehow fake because it's not consistent with the past, which obviously I don't think is the case. But it also could be based on, some circles have talked about the fact that she was on the Index of Forbidden Books and there were some problems with it. So,
well, and when a church, remember also, I think when the church approves a particular devotion, clearly the Rosary stands out. John Paul said himself, now St. John Paul II, that after the Mass, he said the Rosary was his favorite, his perennial devotion. Mm-hmm. I don't see myself, this is just an opinion, I don't see how as a solid Catholic you can't have some sort of devotion to the Blessed Mother. It would be inconceivable to me. But when the Church approves a devotion, what it's saying is that it's sound theologically, and you don't have to pray the chaplet. I pray the chaplet, I try and pray as much as I can. I enjoy it for different reasons than the Rosary. It's a little bit shorter and quicker. But I remember years ago, I was shocked when John Paul added the Luminous Mysteries. And I went to my spiritual director at the time, who was a very wise Franciscan, Father Aidan Mullaney. He was at Steubenville. He was an expert on Franciscan spirituality. studied in Rome, had a doctorate, all that, spoke Italian and French, all the languages. And I was shocked, and I said to him, well, Father, what do you think of this? And he wasn't shocked at all. And he said, you know, the rosary, although we might think it's etched in stone, he said, you know, you could probably have infinite mysteries almost with the rosary, provided they're scriptural. You know, and the rosary, these new luminous mysteries, likely come from a priest who's now a saint. He was from Malta. His name was, well, he was Father George Preca. Now he's Saint Father George Preca. That's where John Paul likely got them from. Maybe there were other places as well. So, and Father was correct that early on there was a nun who translated the Divine Mercy thing. It was a bad translation, and it was initially suppressed. That's true. It was on the index for a while, but then of course Karol Wojtyla became the Archbishop of Krakow, and I assume they retranslated it.
Oh yeah, he pushed
you know, and one other point, Father would know this better than me liturgically, because we're building up to this great summit of Easter, and it's the apex of our year liturgically, Easter and Christmas. The Lord is risen. And I knew some older priests who really thought that perhaps we shouldn't have made what we call Low Sunday or Whit Sunday, Sunday in Albis. The first Sunday after Easter Sunday used to be called Low Sunday or as I said, Whit Sunday.
Yeah.
Now it's Mercy Sunday, and it seems like a logical extension because Easter solemnity, you celebrated several days after the day itself. So it seems like a logical extension of the resurrection is God's mercy. So I think it does fit. That being said, again, you're not obliged to pray it any more than you're obliged to believe in private revelation, other than once the church approves private revelation, we can't speak against it. You know, so Fatima and Lourdes are approved, and but you don't have to have a devotion to Our Lady of Fatima or Lady of Lourdes. But nonetheless, it helps many people. And I think the chaplet, you could equally say it helps many people. The rosary is beautiful. The rosary is a traditional devotion. It's never going to go away. And, it's like adding another devotion like you would add another saint to the calendar. Well, now we have St. John Paul II and St. Faustina. So we should be grateful in many ways that they gave us these devotions.
Yeah. And again, they're private devotion. I mean, they're not liturgical. You don't have to do them. But, I'm not going to be promoting like the Divine Justice Chaplet. Suzette Young says, have either of you heard of the Study of the Catechism, Pillar 3, Morality by Professor Sean Innerest? We studied Pillar 1 and 2 at St. Mary's in Fredericksburg, and we are looking for the other two studies. I am not.
Is he out in Denver maybe? I think, don't quote, who's that from, Suzette?
Yes.
Suzette, don't quote me, but I've heard the name, I'm not certain. Go online and look at the faculty out in Denver. It might be the Augustine Institute, I'm thinking.
It might be there, yeah.
Check and I think he may be one of the or at least was. I don't know if he's still there, but I believe he was there one time. If you look up their online faculty people, you could contact him through the internet, send him an email or whatever, and you should be able to get a hold of him, I think.
Brett asks, Father, if this pandemic goes into next school year and remote learning continues, what would the arguments be for an authentic Catholic school education and incurred costs versus public school, as the negative influence, this moved up, would not be as prevalent as students would be learning from home? Yeah, no, Brett, this is a fascinating thing. We're kind of like adjusting as this unfolds, because God willing, we'll be back in somewhat regular schooling next fall, and things moving. It's even in the ideal world, if you're homeschooling or doing some kind of home education or online learning because of your situation, it's a ramp up to get parents and family feeling equipped. I mean, all these people who are freaking out right now are contacting their homeschooling friends. How do I do this? And then I think even in authentic Catholic education, whether it's in a diocesan school, an independent Catholic school, in a homeschool format, you need some kind of community. You need,
Yes.
some kind of study, a plan of study. So just plopping kids in front of screens obviously isn't the answer. I mean, we're blessed because our academy, our teachers moved really quickly to go online with the Google platform, and they didn't really miss a beat. And so their curriculum continued. But then you can talk to a lot of your friends who homeschool. And I mean, again, homeschooling is a great option for many people. So, so yeah, if you're asking, like, if the public schools are closed, because we're asking these questions of ourselves, what could we do for parishioners who are in the public schools? What could we do for people who are in public schools but who are not our parishioners but who want some kind of online education? So we're looking at that right now. I think, again, one of the good things, or many good things that may come out of this nightmare, is new ways of reaching people, new ways of educating people, introducing people to what the Catholic education world offers online and different curriculums. So I think that there's a lot of really interesting opportunity that we're already seeing right now. Suzette, these discussion times rock. You guys are wonderful shepherds of your flock. Thank you. This is just blow smoke for us discussions because everybody.
Two people who love to eat and love to talk.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we're a little. When we're not little, we're hobbits, but we're big hobbits. Suzette says yes, he is in Denver. So
okay.
At the Augustine Institute.
And one other
which
quick
we love the Augustine Institute.
Yes, I think one other thing what Father was saying about, you know, what could happen in the future, since obviously none of us knows. Education is key, but remember, today I think like the classical understanding of education, coming for, you know, the Latin calling out of, or calling forth, you know, that education traditionally meant not just scientia, not just knowledge. Like today we speak of STEM, like science, technology, engineering, math, and that's good. It is the way of the future, STEM research and STEM education. But we also need, it's scientia plus virtue. It's forming the whole person. It's knowledge, it's character, it's virtue. It's putting that education at the service of the Church of humanity, the body of Christ. You know, just to give a quick plug, I think Christendom does an outstanding job. Really, that's probably Christendom, TAC.
You went to Steubenville.
Well, Steubenville does a good job too, but I think even here I got to say Christendom does even maybe a little better job than Steubenville. You get schooled in the classics of Western tradition of Judeo-Christian ethic, history, philosophy, English literature, science, political science, you know, Shakespeare, the great writings. TAC is also another very good school in California.
Yes.
You know, when you get formed in this first, and you understand that the goal of education is it's not just to make money. Yes, we all know we have to make them. We have to pay bills, and that's important. We have to support our families. But we're also, and you as parents know this, that it's your job to set your children on the path to heaven. On the path to heaven. And so you want to send them, you know, if you send them to a secular school, or you want them to get a master's or a PhD or law school or medical school, whatever they may want to do or go, send them to a good Catholic school first. John Paul the Great, Christendom, TAC, Steubenville.
Sacred Heart Academy.
Sacred Heart Academy, University of Maryland.
Chelsea,
yeah. There are some very good schools. Send them there first, or homeschool them. Give them the basics. Teach them virtue. Teach them the faith. Their faith is getting attacked left and right. We are being undermined constantly as culture, and sadly even by Catholic politicians and others. We don't need to get into all that. But if you form them and ground them in that, then you give them a fighting chance to really succeed in the world. And not just succeed, but to thrive and and not just be a good doctor or a good engineer or a good lawyer or a good teacher or a good mom or dad, but to be a good Christian who's on their way to heaven.
Shannon thanks us. Thank you, Father Holmes. I loved it when you said that the chaplet is shorter than the rosary. I found I could pray this in carpool line at Holy Cross Academy before pickup. Father Lundberg, thanks for explaining the translation of the diary. She also asked, Fathers, have either of you read The Mystical City of God by Blessed Mary of Agreda?
I have not.
I looked at a little bit of it, you know, and then Father Schultz is with us, and he says PVI.
Oh, good.
So we want to promote, and they're moving out closer to us now.
Yes.
I mean, it's still like an hour, but still. So Mary of Agreda, you know, who really loved The Mystical City of God was Solanus Casey.
Oh, interesting.
And
I like Solanus, yeah.
So that's a pretty good endorsement. But, I mean, that's just, for people who don't know, Mystical City of God are allegedly, I guess, private revelations about the life of our Blessed Mother that Mary of Agreda, Blessed Mary of Agreda, saw and then wrote down.
I think one of the things I can say from my own experience, and this I think was probably not good, that when I was in Steubenville, because it was charismatic, a lot of the charismatics, they tend to be more open to stuff like this,
Sure.
and private revelation,
Sure.
and Blessed Mother appearing here and everywhere. And so they would read these types of books, and I think years ago, I never read this. I might have been more amenable to reading it today. I would not. I would say stick with the scriptures, like, you know, the great writings of the church. There may be some fruit in them if they're approved, but I can't really offer much of an opinion since I haven't read that.
Father Bresnahan joined us. We got all the chaplains.
Oh, excellent. Look at
on board.
this.
And he said, a great book's curriculum is, all caps, essential. Father Bresnahan is very well read and very funny, very smart. You should watch his streaming mass every day at 9 o'clock on Facebook. You know, it's part of the St. Mary's Empire. We set out all these priests from St. Mary's in Fredericksburg.
Yeah, really. We're holding
Jennifer Cooper says, any Marian apparitions potentially speak about what's going on today to your knowledge. By the way, Father Holmes and Deacon Gonzalez Mass was awesome this evening, so the Coopers loved your Mass. I mean, you know, Jennifer, in seminary, I used to be told that there wasn't a devotion I didn't like, or Bjorn never lets the liturgy get in the way of his devotions. You know, I love apparitions. Oh, but someone's appearing in a tree. I'm over there, you know. So I thought, you know, it's interesting when I watched that footage of Pope Francis in Rome he went out once the lockdown was in place, and he went to visit like St. Mary Major's, and he went to visit the church with that miraculous crucifix. You saw him walk on the sidewalk, and then he was kind of shaky. And then when he walked up St. Peter's, you know, he's only got like one lung. He walked up St. Peter's,
with his back
to that on the 27th on Friday, and he did the prayer, and then it was so cool. Bells are ringing, and he's doing the benediction. Mm-hmm. But you know, I thought about the third secret of Fatima, where the children said, you know, I saw a bishop dressed in white walking through a city half in ruins, trembling. You know, of course, I'm always trying to filter things into an apparition. So are you aware of any apparitions at this time?
I'm hearing some stuff, and I'm not an expert on this at all. I defer to you here, Father. I think people are saying, oh, Our Lady of Fatima predicted this. I don't know enough about Fatima to say. I haven't heard anything specifically about this. So I would say on this one, I'm not certain.
Father Fred Miller, I'll have to find the link and post it. He gave a good talk on the 100th anniversary of Fatima, and he made the point that, again, he said it was just his opinion. Father Fred Miller is its professor. He's a priest of the Archdiocese of Newark.
Very fine man.
Very
but
good
at
moral
St. Charles and at Mount St. Mary's.
He was at all the seminaries.
Both seminaries, yeah.
Because he first ran the Blue Army Shrine in Washington, New Jersey. Then he was in charge of the Lay Studies Division graduate program at St. Charles Borromeo in Philly, where we met him. Then he was at the NAC in Rome, the North American College. Then he was at the Mount and did all kinds of great work with seminaries. Now he's at Seton Hall, back in his home archdiocese. But he has a good talk, if I can find it, I'll post it, about Fatima, where he says, you know, the year before the children saw Our Lady, the guardian angel of Portugal, which I think we think is St. Michael, appeared to them. And then he said, you know, angels are all over Fatima, and angels are all over the book of Revelation. So his opinion is that with Fatima, you know, we entered into an apocalyptic era. Mm-hmm. Sister Lucia talks about the times in which we live. The day that Our Lady appeared in Fatima was the same day that Pius XII was consecrated a bishop. And that same day in Russia, in like Moscow, a catechist and a group of CCD kids were in a CCD catechism class, and they were shot and executed by, you know, agents of Lenin or whoever, Stalin, whatever, and part of the revolution. So I think we don't know if that's going to be 1,000 years, 500 years, 100 years. We don't know what's going on, but it would seem like, you know, Sister Lucia said that she said because the times we live in, Our Lady has obtained from God that the Rosary is now more powerful than ever. She said there is no problem in the life of nations, in the church, in society, in families, individually. She says there's no problem that can't be solved by the power of the Rosary. Mm-hmm. And then also she said that the final decisive battle between our Lord and the enemy would be over the family. And so we're living through this right now with the Soji stuff and all this redefinition of everything. So it would seem like this all fits in with that overall.
I know there was a good book, I haven't read it, so I don't like to remember, but there was a good book on Fatima written by Father Andrew Apostol.
Yes.
Who is, you know, a cooperator, Capuchin with Father Grichel, very, very fine priest, solid man. And he talked about, you know, that the promises and the hopes of Fatima still apply.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think Apostoli's book, Fred Miller, is fabulous. Either one would be very knowledgeable man to read on that topic, easily and sure certain teaching.
Let's see here. Brett says, I think my kids did better with the classical approach versus STEM. Yeah, I mean, STEM, obviously there's a lot of good things in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. But again, you want a liberal arts education because you want to develop the mind,
Yes.
be able to think, sense of history, be able to communicate. So, I think STEM is great, but it's part of it. And I think if it's just technical stuff, then people are not getting the full introduction. Lori Falk says, hey friends, and then Shannon says, love Mystical City of God, amazing book for these times. And Father Bresnahan points out, my bias is to the University of Dallas. We,
Another very good school.
Produce great priests in our diocese.
Yes.
Father
Don
Rooney, Father Serby,
Oh, nice.
Father Bresnahan. Do we know anybody else? If you know any other priests in our diocese, let me know.
Probably are more.
Oh, sorry. Father Bresnahan's daily mass is at 9:30. So get up at 9 and have your coffee. Well, if you're not really fasting right now, but just be ready for Father's mass at 9:30. And then one of our parishioners is enjoying our outdoor our adoration in the window. Mary Zirkle parked right outside. There's the window at our rectory.
Oh, God bless
We have
her.
the monstrance in the window, and so she's listening and she's adoring our Lord. I tell you, this is a crazy new way of doing community, but
It is, but it's working. In
Yeah.
some sense, it is working, and it gives people hope, and that's important in these times.
Kelly Kaiser says, love seeing all the St. Mary's priests online, feels like family. Yeah, it's really true. Kelly, you have sent us out to the whole diocese, and look at your work. You put up with us for so long.
Not the truth.
Father Christopher Miller in Lincoln says, a question for Father Lundberg. What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? I have no idea, but I can talk faster. Lori Fox says, wonder if the Fatima movie will now come out directly. That's a good question, because I think that was supposed to be released in theaters this month or in April.
There are movies out on Lourdes.
Yeah, but there's a new Fatima movie coming out.
Okay. Didn't
And
know
there's a
that.
documentary coming out, I don't know anything about it, but it's free online right now about Garabandal. So,
There's
I
also,
don't know what to say about
what's his
maybe.
name, Caviezel.
Mary Cooper, or I'm sorry, Jennifer Cooper, check out the Garabandal movie.
Jim Caviezel also talked about doing the Passion of Christ Part 2. I don't know what's the story, what's up with that.
He is, and Father Bresnan pointed out that Father Mosman is also UD. So there's 4
Yes,
priests.
he is, that's right.
So the 2 pastors, recent pastors
And
of St.
Jonathan was
Mary's.
also at Steubenville for a while also.
Who?
John Moss, I think he was at Steubenville for a little while.
Okay, so you can claim him.
He had both.
But so St. Mary's had Father Mosman, Father Rooney, and Father Bresnahan. So 3 UD priests there. Celeste Youngblood says, my nephew's going to University of Dallas next year. I wanted to read this thing. Now this was online. A priest friend of mine, Father Christopher Smith, who's the pastor of Prince of Peace in Taylor, South Carolina, amazing parish. He posted this thing from an article written by an Orthodox priest today, and it's about the coronavirus, and this is great. I'm just going to quote it to you. Quote, the original Passover event, recorded in the book of Exodus, foreshadowing Pascha, so this is how they referred to the Paschal mystery, I guess, the Pascha, began with God instructing his people to shelter in place while a plague ravished Egypt. To avoid the plague, the Hebrews had to isolate from one another in their homes, alone without the ability to gather in mass, alone to work out their faith in fear and trembling. With this in mind, I have stopped struggling with the idea of spending this Pascha in isolation as an attack on the faith. I'm finding rest in the thought that maybe it is a return to the very roots of the faith itself, unquote. I thought that was beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Because you can think about, I mean, look, there are a lot of good questions and people have very good conversations. I think sometimes I feel bad because I think on one level, everybody's coming at this from their suffering, and then there's one, did the bishop think about this, or the priest think about that, or are we giving in to the government? These are good questions, not bad questions. But, I mean, we know our bishop cares, we know our priests care, but we also know that you're suffering because you can't get the Eucharist. But when I hear this, I'm thinking, wow, this is a perspective on, in history, times when people haven't been able to celebrate and worship corporately, and they had to hide to keep safe. So, there's that.
I heard a good thing from a political point of view too, that somebody said, we've had the war on poverty, we've had the war on drugs, we've had the war on racism, thisism, thatism. When was there ever any one of them that we wiped out?
Brought to you in part by LaCroix, the official sparkling water of Holy Week.
Priests can come and go. All of us are born and die. you cannot wipe out a faith. You know, you can take, there's a great line from Napoleon, who crowned himself the Holy Roman Emperor. I love this, where he said to Cardinal Consalvi, he said, I could destroy the Catholic Church. And Consalvi says, oh sire, if 19 centuries in the history of incompetent churchmen haven't done it yet, I doubt very much that you and your very small stature will be able to do so. I don't know what happened to Consalvi after that. Maybe he went off with his head. But he's right. Look,
right.
The
church keeps getting killed and buried and coming back.
That's right. What is it we say at the ordination rite? We rely on God and the help. When a man is ordained, they say we rely on God and the help of the Holy Spirit. And we choose this man as our brother. Applause. It's, if you're, John the 23rd would go to bed now, St. John the 23rd, suppose would go to bed, and he'd say, well, Lord, I'm giving you the church, I'm going to bed now, it's your church anyway, good night.
Yeah, it's your church, I'm going to bed.
So, not that Father Lundberg and I don't have our own particular ways or maybe gifts, God to help us, as he does, but at the end of the day, there's something bigger, there's someone bigger than all of us running things here.
Let's see, Lori, I like that. Lori, I put the quote there, and I'll have to find the article later for you. Father Christopher Miller, again from Lincoln, who was in seminary with us, said hail to Father Bresnahan, because he was in seminary with him. What flavor of LaCroix is that, Father Bresnahan? Shy watermelon or hint of strawberry? No, I'll tell you what it is, Father. It is key lime, naturally essenced, brought to you in part by LaCroix, official sponsor of Sacred Heart of Jesus Catholic Church Rectory. But anyways, so I'm knocking. Sounds like we're having a fraternity party over here. So key lime. When you're trapped in the house, you got to be creative. So I was going to ask Father some ideas about movies you could watch this week. I don't know how it happened, but I got in the habit every year in seminary of watching the 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston. Yes. And it's just great. And, reading that reading, talking about, the chosen people, people trying to follow God's way out of the mess of this world are always going to be misunderstood and persecuted and attacked. And that was, a different era in Hollywood. So I highly recommend that. I also highly recommend you watch Babette's Feast, and probably many of you have seen that. Now that's powerful too. I was like the loser who for years said, "Oh, that looks like a PBS movie or a chick flick," and I was like, "Oh no, you guys see it? It's artsy. It's good, and it's so powerful. There's so much about it about understanding the Eucharist, and since we're in this plague time." So I recommend Babette's Feast and 10 Commandments. Any movies you recommend?
Obviously The Passion of the Christ. I would say too, Max von Sydow's version of The Greatest Story Ever Told. He looks like Christ. It's got a phenomenal cast in it. Keenan Wynn. In fact, here's a trivia question. I think it was in The Greatest Story Ever Told. When the soldier under the cross says, "Truly, this man was the Son of God," does anybody know who the actor was that said that line? I'll give you a minute. If you can't figure it out, I'll tell you who it was.
We'll come back. So let's see. Kelly says, this is totally absolute growth opportunity for the church. Look at how many people are seeking ways to connect with the church. Yes. I think and a lot of people who have not had a positive experience of religion or Catholicism or faith, who are really at their wits' end about their health, and they work in healthcare and they're really afraid, they're turning to prayer. And a lot of people are doing that. Suzette Young says 10 Commandments is on tonight. Oh, cool.
Cool.
Lori says used to watch 10 Commandments with my grandmother. Shannon, God bless you both. We're all leaving this quarantine a bit smarter and hopefully a bit more informed theologically. Yes. Shannon says, whose feast? Couldn't hear clearly. Oh, Babette's Feast. The movie's called Babette's Feast. And then, Carolyn says it's John Wayne. The voice of John
Correct.
Wayne.
It was John Wayne.
Carolyn, you win the night. You win the internet.
Woo-hoo.
Chris Miller was in second place with John Wayne.
Excellent.
Irma Powell said John Wayne. Celeste said John Wayne.
Okay, let me throw out one more trivia then. Okay. Who played Christ in the 1927 version of The King of Kings? Hint. He was also in another famous movie made in 1946. He played Mr. Gower the druggist.
Okay, come back with that. And Bresnahan, Father Bresnahan says, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's a movie about Easter, but people forget that it centers on 4 kids sheltering in place. So there you go. So here's a couple movies for you then. You've got Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 10 Commandments, Babette's Feast, Passion of the Christ.
Greatest story ever told.
Greatest story ever told. So some good stuff. Let's see. Chris Miller, Father Miller says, hey. I don't know what hey about, but okay. Okay, so for your answer, for your question, Ted Spinelli says H.B. Warner.
Henry B. Warner, very good, a British actor.
Ooh.
Played Christ in the silent version of King of Kings, and he was Mr. Gower the druggist in It's a Wonderful Life.
Chris Miller he's in, again, Chris Miller, Father Miller, second place to
Ooh,
the
he
Spinelli
does other
household.
trivia, very good.
Long
gone now, Henry B.
Kate
Warner.
Breen said H.B. Warner, okay.
Excellent.
Any other movie suggestions? Or any readings? Do you recommend any reading? Fulton Sheen or...
Sheen's book, The 7 Last Words, it's a short read, that's good. There's one secular one though, it's kind of screwy. It's a mixed bag. There's a novel, so we want to be very careful, called The Shack. And it's about a very brutal murder. There's a lot of redemptive stuff in it, but the problem with the book is their version of the Trinity is very skewed, to say the least.
Yeah.
So, if you can move past that, and that's kind of a
Big
big part of it. That's a big part of the book to move past. But ultimately, it is about forgiveness and redemption on some level. So there are parts of it that are very good. There are parts that are very skewed.
Father, have you seen There Be Dragons about San Jose Maria?
No.
That's another one, Father Bresnahan. Thank you for mentioning that. So There Be Dragons is a story about this journalist who is estranged from his father, who had been in the Spanish Civil War, and whose dad is ill and dying. And then it ties into the life of San Jose Maria with the founding of Opus Dei, and it's directed by a pretty famous director. I forget, he did a couple other big name movies. But anyway, so There Be Dragons, that's another one.
Did San Jose, did he lose his dad at a young age?
No, San Jose Maria lost his father when he was in seminary.
Because I remember he had to support his family.
He did, because he got ordained and then his father had died and he suddenly was responsible for his mother, his sister, and his
So
younger
they let him
brother.
he went and got a law degree, I believe.
Yeah.
But he did some work, not much, some work in the parish.
Yeah, he was doing parish work, teaching, tutoring.
Father's more the authority. I'm very ignorant on St. Jose Maria, I have to be honest.
Let's see here. Carolyn says, we know Keenan Wynn as Hezekiah from The Great Race.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what that was about, but...
He was, I think, in The Greatest Story Ever Told. It was Keenan Wynn, and then he had a son, or there was a son and a father. They were both actors.
Father Miller, I have a question for you. Father Christopher Miller says, streaming for free on YouTube, Tubi, and Vudu. Does that mean all of their movies are streaming for free because of the quarantine, or is there some special movie?
Vudu is a streaming service, isn't it?
It is, but I'm curious whether some right now, because of the quarantine and the stuff, a lot of these companies are giving special free things, like HBO is streaming for free.
They might be doing it because they want to kind of pull
Kate Green points out it was Roland Joffe, Joffe, who was the director of There Be Dragons.
Okay, Roland
And he
Jones.
also had done some other big names. And Father Bresnahan, another sheltering movie is The Scarlet and the Black.
Yeah, Gregory Peck, and that's about an Irish Monsignor, I can't remember his name now, who helped smuggle people away from the Nazis into safety in the Second World War, and Gregory Peck played the role. And it has a very beautiful redemptive note in it, because the guy who was the commandant of Rome at the time, when the Allies swept through at the end of the war and eventually freed Rome, he was arrested and thrown in jail. And at one point in the movie, if you remember, I can't remember his name, the commandant, the colonel, whatever his name was, he met the Monsignor at the Roman Colosseum, and he wanted the Monsignor to help him. He knew he was doing it, he just couldn't prove it. He said, I want you to smuggle my wife and my son or daughter out of Rome. I want them to be kept safe. And of course, the Monsignor O'Flaherty, I believe was his name, Monsignor O'Flaherty, was really, he was so angry. He said, I'll see you in hell, basically, before I'll do that. So obviously, you should never say that. But nevertheless, and I believe the guy that played the colonel in the movie was the one from The Sound of Music, Christopher Plummer.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, long story short, so he is arrested in jail at the end of the movie, and O'Flaherty went to visit him in jail, and O'Flaherty did smuggle his wife and son into it and save their lives. So it has a kind of a redemptive value to it in that sense.
Irma Powell points out about a book. If you want a very good children's book analogous to The Passion and Resurrection, The Velveteen Rabbit. So that's good for reading at home. Father Bradley, we welcome. Father wonderful James Bradley, who is a professor. He's a priest in the Anglican Ordinariate, and he's a canon law professor at Catholic University in D.C. And he said, "Are we on good Catholic movies? The Cardinal." So Otto Preminger.
Yes, Otto Preminger.
Well, I've also been
Thomas
watching.
Trine.
Father Bradley, I've been watching again The Shoes of the Fisherman,
Yes.
which has a great scene, when the Pope is being elected and all this stuff.
And the Grinch, I like The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. I use that.
For Holy Week?
Not for I'm sorry, I'm getting mixed up. Christmas.
But it's a good, yes.
That is a cute book for
You
Christmas.
can do that too. We're
I
kind
don't
of
know if
desperate
there's,
right
I
now.
don't think there's anything that he wrote for Easter. But
The Great Race is an awesome movie with Jack Lemmon.
that is a
Tony
great.
Curtis.
Oh, that is very funny.
And then,
Hysterically funny.
oh, okay. So Father Miller says There Be Dragons apparently is streaming for free on YouTube, Vudu, and what was the other one? I got to find that again. And Tubi. I don't know Tubi. Okay, let's see here. Shannon, thoughts on the book The Warning, Testimonies and Prophecies of the Illumination of Conscience, forward by Bishop Gavin Ashenden. Just received this book. I don't know anything about
I
it.
don't know anything about it either. I never
We
read
like
it.
to make up opinions about everything, but I don't even know anything about that. Catherine Lopez, Kalo, God bless you too. We're trying to be creative. Thanks for all your good work, all your writing, and all your great posts. Irma Powell says Ed Wynn was the dad. I don't know which.
Ed Wynn was the dad. Keenan Wynn was the son.
Okay. And then I'm really getting confused with everything. Father Miller says also Natalie Wood.
Yeah, she was in The Great Race. With Peter Falk too.
Yeah.
And several others.
Father Bresnahan, Monsignor O'Flaherty, hiding POWs and Jews in the city of Rome.
Yes.
Monsignor O'Flaherty.
Yes.
Everybody's jumping on that. Catherine Lopez says the movie Full of Grace about Mary after Jesus died toward the end of her life is beautiful and free, I think, on Amazon Prime.
I've seen that.
So that'd be a good one. That'd be great. It's a newer one, but yeah, we could watch that during Easter week too. We've got a lot of time to kill right now. Well, not really. We're kind of busy here. The new film about Blessed Franz Jägerstatter, A Hidden Life. I haven't seen that
I
yet,
haven't seen that
but I've
either.
heard that that's really, really good.
I was going to say, D. Philippe's movie, I thought on Teresa Lucia, the little flower was moving. I don't know if that would be something appropriate for Holy Week, but I thought it was very moving when he made it.
Yes, Catherine Lopez says, yes, I'm losing it because I'm watching Facebook Live. Yeah, I know you're kind of... People, really, their lives are very lame right now because they're watching Two Fat Priests out of the rectory. But, we're having fun.
We're having fun. We're having fun doing it.
Carolyn Spinelli, our kids recommend Avengers Endgame as a good Catholic theology movie. All right, good. We want to be up to date. And Catherine says, I'm a fan of The Warning. You were just asked about it for what it's worth. Just started recently. So yeah, okay. Well, I trust Catherine, so we'll check that out, The Warning. Lord Fawkes, is A Hidden Life out yet? It was supposed to be in the theaters too. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see here. Let's see. Where did Father just sent me a text, but I can't find it. But anyways, yeah, Father Bresnahan, we'll see you around. Go lock up the church. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. Yeah, Conchetta Kimbrough, one of our teachers at the academy.
Nice.
That sounds like a good movie. Two Fat Priests.
Who would ever play us? They couldn't find actors as big.
Oh, there's plenty of people who
Maybe
can play.
is John Candy still alive? Or did he pass? I can't remember.
I used to love to watch the cooking show you can find on YouTube. The Two Fat Ladies, Two Fat Cooks. It was great, and one had been a barrister and one had been this kind of bon vivant, this writer, and they would cook these amazing meals. They go on sites around the world. They were very unhealthy. They used full fat everything, so it was very delicious. But then at the end, they'd always smoke a cigarette and have a chat. But it was great. Let's see here. Thanks, Catherine, for the vote of support. Yes, the Adoration live stream, and we're having fun, maybe a little bit too much fun, but no, this is a new way of reaching people. Lori Fox, I just put some red ribbon and a Divine Mercy and a palm on my door. Do I just leave it up for a whole year? Sure, why not? People are starting to put the Divine Mercy image in their windows or on their doors, kind of like the Passover of the blood of the Lamb. Of course, we have the real blood of the Lamb in Jesus. But because of all this, real concern about coronavirus, I think it's great. Maybe get a Divine Mercy Holy card and put it like in a window or on like the window of your front door. And then people are putting greenery, because they can't get palms right now, putting greenery on their doors or in their windows. So that's kind of cool.
By the way, please do not, like a couple of years ago, it was popular when we wanted to sell a house. Do not get an image of St. Joseph and bury him upside down.
Well, I think you can bury him, but don't bury him upside down. But I'm kind of in the minority.
Well, people seem to be successful when they did.
He works. St. Joseph just worked. Just pray to him. He has helped us so much in the parish.
Exactly.
Read about Teresa of Avila, how she loved him. He is so powerful. Yes, Father Bradley, thank you. 2 fat ladies. One of them cooked for the priest at the London Oratory. Yes.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if that's the same episode or the one where her uncle, one of the 2 fat ladies, her uncle was what's the title? He was the gentleman of the house, or whatever, that sounds terrible, of Cardinal Hume. He was like his personal, like his butler or something. So there was, I don't think there was ever a show with that, but I read a lot about them because I love that show. Father Bradley says A Hidden Life is available to buy or rent on Apple TV. Okay, good. Good. Rosary Jazwa says A Man for All Seasons, about Thomas More.
Yes, also
That's
excellent.
a good one.
If you're gonna watch that though, Paul Schofield is the better version. Charlton Heston, they made another movie with Charlton Heston and John Gielgud. Great cast, great actors, but Schofield's is the definitive version, in my opinion.
Yeah. Mary Grace Shaper loves this chat. We have all these people joining us. So Father, we'll go a little bit longer. We haven't had dinner yet, so we have to have dinner after this. Not like we don't have a few calories
and
to
actually,
burn.
although not specifically Easter, I would say that the movie about John Paul II with who's the Hollywood actor there now? The father of the
Yeah. I know you don't know.
I can't think.
Yeah, that guy. He's great.
Angelina Jolie's dad.
Yeah, her dad.
That's a very good movie too. I think well appropriate for Holy Week.
Irma Powell says an Italian priest filled his church with pictures of his parishioners. Yes, the picture was kind of eerie. All these 2D faces looking up at the altar. I was thinking about trying to print the pictures up and we could put them in the church, but we haven't done that yet. Lori says, here are the printable palms from Catholic Icing if anyone wants them. So if you look here in the, I'll try to share them later in a post. Vera says, thank you for the discussion. It's like having a fireside chat. Yeah, we have a fake fireplace we could put right here, and we could kind of do that.
Of course, these go back to the chats that President Roosevelt did, and Roosevelt was, in his day, immensely popular, and although if you look at the statistics financially, he really didn't bring us out of the Depression, but the one thing Roosevelt did do is he instilled confidence. He was apparently a good communicator and instilled confidence, and that, if we can instill confidence and hope in people, all the better. That's what really matters, that Christ is with us.
Father Miller, I don't know what you mean. I don't understand. Oh, okay, so Lori talked about printing palms. Father Miller says, I'd like to know who's going to give us enough toner for that. Well, the point is for families to print up palms that they can cut out or use at their house. So it'll only be a few. Mm-hmm. Because somebody had a funny post on social media about, like, what are you going to do to poke each other with during your live stream masses at your house since you don't have palms? Kathleen Fuse says, you both are making this quarantine so fun. Thanks for being here. That's our goal, make you happy and get you to heaven. Carolyn Spinelli, the Old Jesus of Nazareth mini-series is a favorite here at their house. Lori Fox says,
I didn't know they had a mini-series. Wow, that's interesting.
Lori says we can green screen and then we can have you visiting all over or having a giant fireplace. You're right, we could be like, Masterpiece Theater from around the world. Let's see, Catherine says the Archdiocese of New York sent virtual palms because New York City people don't have greenery. Lori laughed at toner for printing. Let's see what else. So we've talked about some movies, we've talked about books, we've talked about that Orthodox quote. So Father Raftis joined us. I knew Father Raftis out in Seattle.
Nice.
And then
is he a Seattle priest?
No, he was in a religious life there, and now he is a diocesan priest. And
which diocese?
I think, Father, are you in Montana? Can you let us know? I don't remember off the top of my head.
I knew a priest when I was out in Seattle. Was classmates with Bob Slinsky.
Carolyn Spinelli says the Franco Zeffirelli version of the old Jesus
Okay, yeah, I
Magic
have not.
miniseries.
I haven't seen those.
But let's see. Julia joined us.
Oh, nice.
Julia Carty, our DRE, who's long suffering.
We love her. We love Julia's accent. We wish we had an accent like those.
Julia. Now then, Father Bradley's.
We're jealous, Julia, that we don't speak like you.
We have bad accents. She says, you guys are fun to watch. So we are enjoying chatting with everybody. What else? Father, do you have any other thoughts we could share or wrap up a bit? Let people go home and have their nightcap?
No, other than I think what I began with, I think that, what I said about St. Bruno, that, the cross stands firm as the world changes. So we are in a period of transition. Again, it's hard. We don't know when it's going to end. Sadly, innocence will suffer. I agree with you. I mean, God certainly did not will this. Nevertheless, I do believe, and I also agree with you, Father, that God is working through this in a new and powerful way. And I think He's using the technology, or He's allowing us to use the technology. So I think, as much as you can this week, slow down, get to bed earlier, spend what time you can with family, but also we've been afforded really blessed, beautiful weather. Go out, walk, ride a bike.
Been really nice.
The gyms are closed, unfortunately, but we can still exercise. Go for a walk with your kids. It's good. Nature is also one of God's gift. The rising and the rising and setting of the sun, the ocean, the mountains. I mean, God has given us so much beauty in the world that we can also enjoy. So, if you can, as much as possible, try to take advantage of that. And I think be deliberate in terms of your prayer time and maybe also spending at least one good time for a meal every day, a nice dinner hour where you share the time with the kids. Talk about the faith, talk about what's going on. They want to know. They're probably all plugged into the computer's electronic media also. I think to whatever extent you can assure them, you love them, you protect them, we will get through this.
I agree with you, Father. And I was thinking, it's not original thought, but I saw someone else comment on this. One of the things that's going on here is God is bringing everybody together for family. Our families, because of technology, because of, of our prosperity and people's independence, we tend to be split up a lot. We're out doing this or that, or running around or with friends and family. But now we have this forced downtime together. Now, that could mean, of course, that you're on top of each other and you're ready to kill each other, and familiarity breeds contempt, and that's
Hopefully
hard.
not.
But at the same time, too, I've learned at every assignment I've had, I don't know if Father would comment on us or not, every assignment I've had as a priest, when I first get there, it's hard. And when I leave it, I miss it, and I'm crying as I'm leaving it. So I've started telling myself, every time I start something, someday you're going to miss this place. And so, not to get all nostalgic, but what I mean is 6 months from now, a year from now, you could say I'm going to look back and say, I had 2 months of this quarantine. You could clean out your garage. You could learn Russian. You could figure out how to crochet. I don't know what you want to do. But you could also say, I had time with my kids. I had time with my spouse. Mm-hmm. My college kids were home because of the quarantine. We had time together that we never really would have had, and that's a precious thing.
It is, yeah.
So again, it's interesting because it's Lent, right? And everybody's giving something up, and you're already kind of in a cranky mood because it's Lent. You're trying to sacrifice. But, maybe modify your penance. There's only 1 week left. But, just say, look, like Father said, make a nice meal together, even if it's simpler. Make a meal together. Again, watch Babette's Feast. I'm going to post a link to this movie, to the book, an article about Drinking with the Saints, which is this great book about celebrating the liturgical year. And it's for Easter. There's all kinds of things. What kind of cocktails, or what it says. The article's what wine do you want to have with your Easter ham? So obviously all things in moderation, but a little culture, movies, music, books.
Speaking of movies, there's a line from a movie, I just thought of this. There was a movie made, I think it was back in the 80s or 90s, with Jeff Bridges and Martin Landau, and it was called Tucker, A Man and His Machine.
Yes.
So Tucker was this Chicago financier businessman who made some stuff for the Army during World War II, and he came up with his own line of cars. He had a kind of it was a very cutting edge car at the time, with a lot of the technology that the other companies basically were kind of afraid of. It was, I think it was I can't remember if it was a rear or front drive car, but it had the engine in the back. It had seat belts, hydraulic brake. It had a lot of advances for the time, and they actually only made 50 of them. So if you have a Tucker, if you had a Tucker today, it'd be worth probably close to $500,000. But anyway, so when GM and Ford and Chrysler were all basically conspiring against Preston Tucker, his lawyer, who was played by Martin Landau, great name of the lawyer. His lawyer's name was Abe Carrots. It's like Preston. My mother used to tell me, don't get too close to people. You'll catch their germs. And great actor Martin Landau, God rest his soul, now passed on also. And he said something interesting later in the movie. He said, it took me years to figure this out. He said, when my mother said, don't get too close to people, you'll catch their germs, what he said his mother really meant was, don't get too close to people, you'll catch their dreams. And when you become a priest, and I think Father would agree with this, you become, as Lacordaire would say, a father of many and a father of none. So the parish really is your family, sometimes for better or worse. But it's hard to become a member of the family, and it's hard to leave the family. So this is a time to focus on family. We know that the family and the sacrament of Holy Matrimony is God ordained, that children need a mother and a father. So, and most of us, I think, I don't want to speak for other people, but I think most of us at the end of our lives, we're not going to say, I wish I would have spent more time at work. I wish I would have made more money. I wish I would have invented this, But most of us will say, I wish I would have spent more time with my children or grandchildren or whoever. Remember that song, Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin? My boy grew up just like me. Don't let that be you. Spend time with your family. Make it a good Easter, a good Holy Week. You will not regret it, I promise.
I think it's going to be a really special Holy Week. It's going to be different, but I think it'll be really special. And God's giving many graces. Chris Miller said, someone asked me recently if this was a punishment from God. I told them that if it was, it would be more severe than what we're experiencing. I mean, I think on one level, right, when God punishes, we don't understand that correctly. It's always tough love. Even when God punishes, it's ordered towards our salvation. God has no desire. He sent his son. He died for every person who ever existed. The person who chooses to separate themselves from God, it's not because God wanted that. Even when we need an intervention, and if this is some kind of an intervention, it's tough love to get us back on track. But, again, I think already we see so many good things coming out of it.
One other quick thought, for those of you who like psychology, there was a very famous man who was in the prison camps during World War II. He's passed away now. His name was Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book called Logotherapy.
He also wrote Man's Search for Meaning.
Man's Search for Meaning, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so at one point in the book, and I think this is in Man's Search for Meaning, the prisoners were going to try to escape, and they wanted Frankl to come with them because he was a doctor and he could help care for them. So he went to his patients in the camp, and he said, we're going to try and make an escape tonight, and so-and-so will take care of you, you'll be fine, don't worry. And he said, and there were some pretty beat down people physically and emotionally, and he said they looked at him with these puppy dog eyes, and they basically said to him, Doctor, if you leave, I will have no reason to live. And Frankl talked about it, and he said the people who were able to survive and to thrive, and these were talking literally hellholes, pardon my language, but hellholes. As John Paul said of Auschwitz when he went to see Colby, the best and worst of humanity simultaneously. The ones who could exist and thrive, he says, they had to have a meaningful life outside of the camp. Like, I'm going to go back to see my wife. I'm going to get back to see my kids. Eventually, I have to survive for them. Those were the ones he said that usually thrive. And so, we will get past this, so we have to have a reason to keep going. and for your wife, for your children, for your loved ones, for your parents, for God, ultimately, whatever that reason is, hold that tight. It will help to pull you through.
To sum that up a little bit, another version of that I heard about Frankel's, he said that he saw people in the death camps who walked into electrical fences in order to end their life. Yeah. He also saw people who went to the gas chambers singing hymns to God. And he said the difference is that people who had a reason to live, lived, and people who didn't. So on one level, we want to count our blessings. We want to say, look, I got family, I have friends, I'm alive. It might seem like a basic thing, but right, this life is not everything, and we're still aiming towards greater things. We're moving from sublime to more mundane. Celeste says, Kermit said this year everyone's going to have amazing lawns because they finally have time to tend them. It's true.
Well, hey, that's beauty in some sense. People can enjoy it. Father
Bradley, he says, absolutely agree. Best advice I have had so far, quote, make your circumstances your cloister. Right?
Yes.
So we have this chance to draw within and really want to work on our interior life. Too many of us don't work on our interior life. Carolyn Spinelli, she says, yes. We all have sunburns here from working outdoors all day today. Angela says, that's such an excellent point. I feel guilty with 2 kids that I'm not learning new talents or reading more, etc. But that's an excellent point, though. Spending time is enough. Right, yeah. I mean, people say, oh, my kids aren't doing enough homework, or oh, I didn't do this, whatever. Just do something. Just do what you can do. If your kid's about to go crazy, let them play video games. If you're about to kill somebody, maybe just have a glass of wine.
Or port, glass of port.
Father likes port. Let's see here. Shannon, for years I bought Drinking with the Saints for Friends, always a hit. Yeah, and so we can look at that for Easter. Carolyn Spinelli says, Polly says this is funnier than Gilligan's Island. Well, that's good. They didn't have 2 fat priests on Gilligan's Island. Shannon says, we always sing hymns to God. And then Linda Wilson says, greetings from Lake Fred. Yes, hello.
Polly would be the professor with the technology. I'd be Gilligan. He'd be fixing everything. I'd be messing it up.
No, I just would be eating something. But, all right. Well, let's see. Any final questions or anything from anybody? We will wrap up. We are enjoying this. And we are learning from this all the time. We're trying to figure out new technologies and things we can do. I was thinking, if there's a way what we could do is, we're trying to figure out this one program, the software we're using, where we could bring in some guests for the chat. And so we can do that, I was thinking we get Father Dobbins in on the chat.
That'd be fun.
Because he's a scream and he's doing well.
You don't want to put Father Dobbins and Father Lundberg together. It's like the comedy hour. You won't stop laughing, trust me.
Well, Father Dobbins taught me everything, and then I just shared the wealth. Lisa Rampino. Lisa is a teacher at John Paul the Great, and her son is Father Joseph Rampino.
Oh, wonder. Oh, bless her.
She was, I'm going to get this wrong, you're Air Force officer, but great teacher.
God bless her for serving a country, too. Thank you.
She says, good to see you. Keep it up. But anyways, what else? So we had a good week, and my dad turned 80. And so that was exciting, and we've gone through this week, and poor Guillermo, our deacon, he's spending so much time in front of the Blessed Sacrament, coming adoration.
He's a saintly guy. He's going to be a great priest.
He's going to be a great priest. We're excited. He got called to orders, but we're going to, the quarantine is like a gigantic retreat before he gets ordained. Mary Grace Shaper says, how's Father Dobbins? Well, I'm happy to say he's in good spirits. I've seen him once or twice, and when I see him streaming, he looks great. And he said the mass in his lung has shrunken, so we're excited about that. And he's finishing up, I think he may have finished up this week, his last chemo, but then he is also finishing ongoing immunotherapy. So it seems to be working, so keep praying for him. Irma Powell says, Institute of Catholic Culture has lots of great lectures and webinars, Zoom chats today.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Go online and check out ICC, Institute of Catholic Culture. They have tons of great resources. It's a good ministry to support Father Hezekiah's and all their great work.
St. Joseph Communications, so I think those CDs we have on our racks, I'm not certain, but I thought it was Jeff Cavins. I want to say Jeff Cavins. It might have been someone else who said, like, little CD, like the 15 things or the 12 things you can do when you're suffering. Something like that. So if you can find that CD, I think it's Jeff Cavins. It might be someone else. It's worth listening to.
Yeah. if you download the app, I don't know who it is now. Either it's Augustine Institute or Lighthouse Catholic Media or Ignatius. They're all becoming one thing. You can download a lot of these talks on the app for your phone. So that's another resource. Because if you have the CD, great. But if not, you can go to Lighthouse Catholic Media, and there's a way to get the talks.
Remember also now Saint Mother Teresa. Remember she went through that phase where she had 40. I mean, we're talking a couple of months here. 40 years
of darkness.
I mean, 40 years. That's longer almost than some of us have been alive. You know,
Right.
It's like we can't even fathom that. So try to also keep things in perspective. I know, yes, it's hard. It's very, very hard, but it will end, and it won't be 40 years.
Catherine Lopez points out Father Bill Byrne for another comedian. I don't know, Father. We'll have to meet him. That would be great. And Catherine Lopez, great writer and journalist, National Review. You see her online. But she also was a good friend of Kate O'Byrne. I was thinking about her. Because Kate died, she died like around Divine Mercy Sunday. And she, great lady, and she would be funny. It was an honor. She'd invite you to her house to eat. And then if you didn't eat seconds, she was offended. But then when you ate seconds, she'd offer you thirds and dessert. And then she'd say, the priest eat me out of house and home. But then she pointed out that we needed wives because we didn't know how to bring a bottle of wine. I think most priests would bring gifts. I was the mooch who didn't show up with a gift. But great lady, I got to anoint her before she passed. Carolyn Spinelli says he streams masses. Hang on a second. Probably on Facebook lately. I'm not sure who that is. Shannon says, y'all should do a Bible study or devotion teaching. You're both so amazing and fun to listen to. Well, Shannon, also, we're excited here at Sacred Heart because we have hired Dr. Nicholas Liebisch, who is currently running the lay graduate division of the seminary.
He's a legit scholar.
In Denver, and he has like 2,500 grad students with 70 campuses in 2 dioceses. And he is coming, the family's moving here at the beginning of August, and we're going to start a Sacred Heart of Jesus Biblical Institute. We're going to have classes, like a 3 or 4 or 5 year curriculum you can sign up for. I mean, we'll charge something for it because it covers the cost of running things. But we're really excited because we're going to have that. Now with all this technology that we're figuring out how to do, we can stream it online, you can sign up for it.
And the beautiful thing today, I think, too, with continuing learning on classes, online, everything, there's a plethora of good stuff to read. We don't have a shortage of solid books.
Yeah.
You know, so
Father Holmes and I have no shortage of books.
Oh, we're trying to give them away to each other.
He like gives them to me, and I give books to him, so it's kind of a mess. Let's see, Mary Galbach. Mary, how are you doing? Mary's a great lady whose kids I knew when they all went through John Paul, and then get to do her son's wedding coming up in June. She said, thank you both for spending the evening with us. We love you guys. Cheers to a strong Holy Week. Absolutely. Catherine Lopez says, oh gosh, you two must meet. Yeah, we got to meet Father Byrne, and that would be fun. Mary Grace Shaper. Kateri says hi and sends love and prayers. Kateri, we want you to hang in there. Don't get too frustrated. We'll see you soon. And Kateri, I'm going to embarrass the family. The Shaper family are great people. Well, all of our parishioners are great people. And father and daughter made us 3,200 rosaries that we're going to hand out to parishioners. Now, they did this over the course of like a year, and we had this big plan how we're going to do it. Well, now it's been delayed, but we're going to hand them out. Mark Schlomer, Father. Nice. Another great movie is The Miracle in Cell Number 7. It's a foreign film, not for smaller children, but a wonderful story on Netflix. Okay, everybody, Miracle in Cell Number 7, but not necessarily a family movie, but maybe mom and dad check it out.
I don't know about that. I've never heard it.
Catherine says, yeah, Divine Mercy Sunday. I think that's when Kate O'Byrne passed away. Just before noon. Yeah, that was great. And then her funeral was great, and all her friends. Earlier, I think April Paniru was with us too, and she, of course, was super, super close, tight with Kate. Lori Falk says, okay, good night, Father. We have to go watch a movie. Good night, absolutely. Naomi says, hi, Fathers. Carolyn says, see you at Mass in the morning, bright and early, Fathers. Yeah, we have English Mass at 9 a.m., Latin Mass at 11, Spanish Mass at 1. Naomi says, wow. Catherine says, Kate loved you. Thanks for mentioning her. She's very present these days. Yeah, Kate is a great lady. And I was a nerd in high school with my father watching her on television when she was at Heritage. And it was a real honor to meet her. Teresa says, enjoying your discussion while I prepare dinner for tomorrow. Way to be productive, Teresa. Bree says, sounds great. And Bree said hi earlier. I forgot to say hi to Bree.
See, Father knows everybody, so I can drop a name and I'll say a name, but Father even knows the person's probably
Father
better.
knows a lot of people too. But we're always trying to find out ways to help the parish. Laura says, I'm making tomorrow's dinner now too, haha. And then Naomi says, wow, again. And let's see. So anyways, it is 9:57. Father, why don't you lead us in a prayer and we'll give everybody a blessing.
Surely, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Our help is in the name of the Lord.
Who made heaven and earth?
Lord God, we ask you to bless all of those who, through the means of electronic communication, through the computer, laptop, through Facebook, and streaming and other means of electronic communication, that you continue to bless us, to give us your peace, to strengthen us, fill us with your grace. Help us to know first and foremost that you love us, that you will never ever abandon us, that you call us each by name, for you have written us in the palm of your hand, and you have paid that price for us by the nails both in your hands and your side. Let us meditate on the passion, let us look to the cross, but let us also remember the empty tomb as our final victory. We pray all in Jesus' name, amen.
And may God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. All right, we will be putting out a schedule for this week. We don't know right now what we know sort of what we're doing, but we don't know exactly have planned yet when our next little chat will be. Maybe it could be on Wednesday. I don't know. We could try for something Monday or Wednesday. And then it'll get a little bit crazy as we go into the Triduum. But so we'll put something out, but I think we'll aim for, will Monday work for you?
Sure. And once we get through Easter, things will let up a little bit. We can do a little more maybe.
Yeah. And then we'll figure out something more regular since it's all new. All right. Well, very good. Kathy says, what technology are you using? Kathy, we're using an iPhone with we used to use Facebook Live. The platform we're using is called Restream, and this allows you to set up accounts. We did have a paid account where we can stream to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all these things. And then there's an app, which I don't remember right now the name of, that I'm using on the phone, which works on the phone in sync with Restream. So it pushes this out. It's pushing to
multiple media,
2 Facebook pages, 2 YouTube channels, and a couple other things. But then we can open up on the laptop on Facebook and we can see everybody's questions. So
that's so cool.
Anyway, so okay, it's 9:59. Have a good night. Happy Palm Sunday.
Keep the faith.
Print up your fake palms and poke each other with them.